So we've been seeing a lot of different pictures of systems and such out there, and there's some incredible systems that people are running. And one of the somebody had thrown out the idea or asked a question about is the need for fast teardown after a show. Is that still needed? Because in some markets, that is huge. And I want to kind of get an idea from your guys' perspective if you have experienced that, and thoughts when it comes to if that's a limiting factor in how you're putting together your shows and what you're planning to, go and offer. So, Cubbie, I think you started last time. So, Dan,
Yeah, definitely. This is one of the things that when I created my piece together system with the rolling booth or anything else that I've done, it's all been about how quickly can I be done and out of there. The downside that has happened is I've gotten so quick that I'm ready to roll out, and the party bus that's taking everybody from the reception is still standing in front of the doors, so I can't go get my trailer to get in the car and go. So there is a downside to that, but no, I think it's important. I know my venues love it. I know that they're happy that they're not having to pay, somebody to stick around, or they're not having to stick around. I'm done. I'm out of there. It's good. And so when I was piecing everything together, and when I just even what I decide I might add to the system. Okay, now what does that mean for my setup? Sure. How much longer is that going to take? And if it's 5 minutes, okay. If it's 25 minutes, nope, forget it. Going to find another way, another piece to it, and another setup. And I'll just use this as an example. So one of the big things I was doing was trying to figure out, I wanted new lighting. I had used the 4-bar tri for years, and it's dying on me in a lot of ways. Just in my own mood more than anything else. But when I went to replace it, a lot of people suggested getting like the collapsible truss with like a wash FX on top of it, because it's kind of gives you some of the looks and stuff that I wanted. That took more setup time than I wanted to add because of running the cables and putting it up. And now I'm hooking up 2 of them, running DMX to the 2 of them. It was more than I wanted to add. And because that fast setup fast teardown and somewhat setup becomes really key to just being done at the end of the night.
Cubbie.
Yeah, I have to agree with Dan. Fast teardowns is where it's at. It makes a venue so much more happier when you're out of there. They're not having to wait on you. I'm too fat and old to be tearing down like a lot of stuff, so I am lean and mean. Like I said, I use it. We've all talked about it. Danny Mac stand, and he's pre-wired, and so I wrap a few cords, throw my tube lights in their cases, tear down my stands. It goes in 2 different cases, and I'm really out the door within 20 minutes. Like Dan said, I usually beat the bridal party out of there. It's not like I want to. I mean, I go by and tell my bridegroom thank you and ask them for reviews. So I'm going to get one from the company, from good old DJ Event Planner. We send out a review 7 days right afterwards. I warn them about that, and I thank the parents. But I still can get out of there in 20 minutes, and it's just I want to get out of there. I've been on my feet for 8 hours. I don't want to dilly dally. I don't want to too much light show. It doesn't. Mm-mm.
And the venues are appreciative of that.
So appreciative, yeah, because I hear horror stories of people that bring in large trussing systems, at least here in the Midwest. I want to state where my market is. It's right here in the Midwest, and they come up with these super large trussing systems like back in the 90s and put lights all up in it, and they're tearing down. It takes them 3 hours to set up and 2 hours to tear down, and it's just not worth it.
So, I will say this, just to kind of piggyback on that for a second. I will say this. So I've never had a venue complaint. So even when I was using, even back in the 90s, early 2000s, when I was using like that big trussing and putting on, I never had a venue complain about me and my teardown. But I would hear them complain about some other DJs and the time that they took. So the one thing I will say is whether your setup is what one would consider fast or not, if you're dilly-dallying, if you're taking your time, you're not making the venue happy. So even if you have a big setup, work quick. Make sure it's very evident that you're taking this down as fast as you can.
Randall on Facebook mentions, yes, venues want them out in less than an hour. Superflies mentions, of course, that they want everyone out by midnight, which is common in our neck of the woods also. And that Superfly, who does some really big shows, also has a more of a basic wedding setup that can get out of there in time. But it's a discussion that he has in the planning meeting with that. That's a big thing.
It's great that he addresses that and lets them know ahead of time that, depending on what system you choose, I think it's amazing for him to do that. Of course, school's a little bit different than weddings. School setups would be a whole lot different. More spinning fugues, more lights. But for me, it's 95% weddings, lean and mean.
So I've got two things. School was one of them, and we used to, back, and this would have been in the late 90s, when we were doing the trussing and everything at schools. And we had this huge show. The teacher wanted and there were 400 students that come to the dances, so they needed a bigger sound system. So we went, and there were 3 of us to set up, and it took us 2.5, 3 hours to set up. We did everything, and we were ripping down because they said they wanted us out of there as fast as possible. And that's why there were 3 of us. And then the janitors actually were like, "Yeah, you've got 15 minutes, go." And we were literally, as we're packing feverishly, kind of doing what Superfly said, throwing cables in bags just to get them out the door. The janitors are hauling our gear away, and it's like, no, you can't do that. You got to be out of here. You don't understand. You got to be out of here. It's like, yeah, we had everything. It was literally outside the door. 16 minutes later, it was
wow.
And we never went back. But there was like this huge disconnect between the whole situation. Then of course with weddings, that's been a big thing. There's a couple of venues that will if you're taking too long, they will leave, and they may go do something else, come back later. But it's been kind of a known thing that if you're taking too long, and the manager, if he leaves the place and he's not around, you're not coming back. So we've kind of and he's mentioned that he's like, I give DJs this much time, and if they're not, I'm going to go, and when I come back, if they're not gone by that time, then they're never coming back for sure. But it's like, oh, okay. And he gives them, I think, about a half hour is what it's kind of the magic number here, is about a half hour after the guests leave. So if the wedding party's milling around for another 15 minutes, that buys you 45 minutes of breakdown time. Yeah, hiring people to break down would be, again, extra costs, and sometimes you don't know about those things until you get right there, and that kind of sucks. So, all right, gentlemen, let's jump to our next question.